alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm your humble host, Tim Niederreiter, from the icy plains of Minnesota, again, as it's blizzard conditions out here. But with me today is a new guest to the show, Freddy Cruz. Welcome.
Hey, thank you for inviting me to the show, man.
Oh, it's great to have you. It's good to have somebody who's got more experience in kind of the broadcasting field, I'd imagine, than me on the show.
Well, it's fun. I am simply a broadcaster. I've told colleagues of mine I'm not the best, I'm not the worst, I'm not the last, I'm not the first. I am nothing more than just a dude who stands behind a mic, sometimes sits, sometimes people hear words, and they've heard my words for, oh man.
No, you don't have to say how long.
Really long time, baby.
Fair enough, yeah. I mean, but now people can read your words. You got the book? Is it out or coming out?
It will be out soon. We're having some background issues, but it will be out. My guesstimation is going to be before the end of 2021. That way, for everyone's New Year's resolution to read more, they can read. They canceled the DJ, and I've got the first book came out a little over 2 years ago, called When America Fell Silent, which is a dystopian fiction. So the second book is a hard left turn from proverbial left turn, not political.
No, we don't have to talk about politics here.
Yeah.
No.
But it's a hard turn away from the first book. This one is more of a satire, dark humor book that follows a DJ.
Shocking.
Who gets ditched on stage by a world famous, Shawn Mendes with a beard, world famous musician, in front of everybody, in front of the world. And so he plots his revenge on this dude and on his ex, and chaos ensues.
Oh boy, yeah. So that's interesting. You say humor because the press release was more like thriller and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, but then I read the blurb and it was like, this sounds kind of funny. This has to be satirical, which I'm glad you're on point there. I'm like, I wasn't totally off base thinking that.
No, not at all. And there are where the dark part comes into it is because there are some sociopathic tendencies with the protagonist, who's really he's more of an anti-hero than anything, really. I think he's as my developmental editor Diane Callahan says, he's a complicated human, a little bit of good, a little bit of bad, because there are places in the story where you're like, aw, AC, and then you're like, whoa, dude, okay, and then there are parts where he admits to being a sociopath, so.
Okay, so this sounds really interesting, actually. I mean, for a bunch of reasons, and maybe a close. Obviously, it sounds like a very different kind of story than something like American Psycho, but it sounds it could be in the same genre, you might say, same subgenre to some degree.
Sure, I think so.
Though that's like literature, and if yours is a thriller, it's not going to feel the same in it to anyone in any way, really.
Yeah. I'm definitely not an English lit. Barely made it through business school. Had to take.
Well, I was an English lit major, and I'm telling you, you didn't miss much.
Yeah. Well, and I barely made it through business school. I had to take accounting 3 times just to get a C, and finance 4 times to get a C, and. Ooh, yeah.
That is an advantage. That is an advantage of English, though. There's no math.
I'm terrible at the maths.
Yeah. So you were saying right before we started, though, that you have been. We were talking a little bit about your writing process, kind of incidentally, and about writing every day. So what do you do when you write every day then?
Yeah. Well, I write. Okay, so as a broadcaster, and I have a 5-hour midday show. And then I also have a Sunday morning community affairs show. I write out my prep. So minimum, I'm writing 300 to 500 words a day. And before we started the segment, it was one of those things where it's like, well, George R.R. Martin can go, centuries and then write a paragraph. So
After 1,000 years, we have a chapter.
Because he has finally written a paragraph. And it's no knock on people who write like that because, hello, he's only the author of one of the most successful series of all time. So there is something to say about that kind of process. But there are guys like us who, you know, that creative muscle has to be exercised or it atrophies. You've got to use it or you lose it. Just like when you're in the weight room, if you're a runner, you got to do that, man. You got to exercise it.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been writing novels for like 18 years now, almost 20 years, something like that. And I mean, I'm not that old. I started when I was in my teens. So I
started when I was 5.
I was 13.
Oh, 13. Wow.
That's when I wrote my first novel, 12 or 13, I forget. That's why I say almost 20 years.
How many pages? How many pages?
Oh, that one was pretty short. That was like 250 pages.
Pretty short, 250.
Well, I've written books 3 times that long, so you know, it happens.
I mean,
but I only have one like that. Yeah.
That's no small feat for a 13-year-old man.
No, it isn't. The book wasn't very good, as you know, as you could no doubt guess. A 13-year-old doesn't know a whole lot about the world, you may think.
Yeah. And
so even writing far-flung space opera is tough for one of somebody with that age.
Yeah.
Just to get the characters right. And then the fact that I'm also autistic and at the time just diagnosed with autism, which was crazy, and that I managed to write a book at all, basically, at that point, because I don't know anything about people, and I knew even less then.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Not very good at understanding people, and then, like, what are characters, but, you know, they're facsimiles of people.
Yeah, man. Wow, that's something. I mean...
Not trying to brag, but it is that time of night when I get babbly.
It's quite impressive that you would write something like that. I mean, not just for as a 13-year-old, but as a 13-year-old with autism. That is quite the feat.
Well,
and to keep writing, and three times 250. That's yeah.
No, that's it. It's like the math is not hard there. It's 750, but I do it kind of compulsively. But anyway, I can't. I had to say the answer because I knew it. That's how bad I am. Anyway. So your books, though, you're writing every day for whatever reason. Actually, it's kind of funny though, because now, I mean, my process has changed a lot. That's one of the reasons I'm curious about this. Just recently, my process has changed because I'm writing serial fiction on Kindle Vella right now. So that's kind of my primary output, because those become novels eventually, but I release them a chapter at a time. And I'm writing 10 stories right now. That's how insane I am. I'm writing 10 stories at a time. Each one I release 2 chapters a day normally. But I fell behind this week, so I released 5 chapters today, which means I edited 5 chapters today, and I wrote a couple of those from scratch as well today.
That's impressive. So I imagine...
So I'm insane. I'm just trying to say this is why I feel so crazy, but go on. You were saying. Sorry.
I'm going to guess that you're... I'm going to guess that you are a plotter for you to be able to churn out the pages the way you do and put out the work. I can't imagine you're flying by the seat of your pants.
Well, you'd be wrong then, because I do that. I fly by the seat of my pants. Yeah. As my audience knows by now, because I say this all the time, because we talk a lot about writing process on the show. And like, so do you plot? Are you a plotter? Yeah.
The first and second books, no. Fly by the seat of my pants. The second book in particular, because there was so much restructuring, they had to go on with it to make it work. There were some character development issues. I had to, I merged characters. There were parts. My developmental editor was like, "Well, you had great lead-ins, but not so great payoffs. You had great payoffs, but the lead-ins were very weak." So it was a lot of restructuring, and then taking the inciting incident where AC gets dumped on stage, moving that to an earlier part. That way, it's not this. That way, you're not reading, and you're waiting for it to happen. You're waiting.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought this was going to happen. It's kind of
right.
Like,
if it's in the blurb, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. It's like if you were to get to the 250th page of the Hunger Games, and you're like, when does the freaking Hunger Games start? I was promised something.
Yeah. And at that point, the book's 1,000 pages long or something. If it takes that long, like I had a really hard time with Perdido Street Station, which on paper, I mean, is completely up my alley. China Mieville, Perdido Street Station. It's like a steampunk fantasy, weird fantasy book, very weird fantasy book. But then it takes forever for me to even understand what the story's going to be about. It's just like, because it's about this city and this mage who's trying to get this wizard, this like scientist who's trying to build wings for a birdman who's had his wings amputated. That's how weird this story is.
A birdman with
there's this species of bird people in the setting, and this one guy has had his wings cut off, and so this guy's trying to make him a way to fly, because like a cybernetic attachment or something, anything to help this guy fly again, so he can be part of Birdman society, I guess. But it's just I don't know what's going on other than that, and that I've read 200, maybe 300 pages of that book. And I've never gotten through the whole thing, because that's the kind of problem you run into when you're reading a book like that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the story, the writing just it's got to be on point. The plotting has to be on point. There's one book long. I don't commit to books longer than 500 pages, with two exceptions. Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene, which is nonfiction, which is amazing. I love Robert Greene. He's got a book with 50 Cent, which is just mind-blowing. It's so good. The 50th Law. And then Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, which, as you know, is like a thousand page door stopper. And I blew through that over the course of a summer. I read slow, so there are probably people who would blow through something like that in 2 weeks. But and after that, it was like, okay, now what? I would never commit to something that long. It's just when you have a job and a family, and there are other things that you enjoy doing. A book like that is just woo-wee. That's why. And again, it's no knock on the fantasy genre or names like George R.R. Martin or Stephen King, because their books are super long too. I just personally can't do it. I'd rather read a whole bunch of books.
Yeah, I'm actually in the same boat. Even though I write fantasy, I don't prefer the big epic fantasy that's really common these days. I'm more of a heroic fantasy, like Conan the Barbarian, Michael Moorcock. Michael Moorcock's an author, not a character. Elric, like the Elric books that he wrote, that kind of thing. Those books range around the 200-page mark, or they're short stories in a lot of cases. Like Conan, those aren't even full novels in a lot of cases.
I'm curious, do those kinds of short, because from what I gather about the fantasy world, in order to get published traditionally, I mean anybody can publish whatever they want, but if you're trying to go the trad route,
that doesn't sell very well these days. No, not to trad. You can't really do it. They're almost all epic fantasy now, as far as I can tell in trad.
Like super long. When you say epic fantasy, like
that's the genre where we were talking Brandon Sanderson and George Martin and Patrick Rothfuss, people like that. Yeah. And all those books tend to be in excess of 450 pages at least. Yeah. Which is also the weird paradigm shift that you have to take because I just tried to get traditionally published for a long time. A large portion of my 20 years or whatever of writing was trying to be traditionally published back when I was a kid. But the thing is, I didn't realize back then, that's why I wrote some longer books. But the other thing is that when you're writing for your first novel, they say don't go over 100,000 words.
Right.
But if you're writing epic fantasy, they're saying that's the bare minimum. So it's like you got to hit that bullseye, or you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, man,
it's kind of a trick.
Yeah, it is. I
don't have a lot of books that are bang on 100,000 words or even close, by the way. Most of them are way shorter or way longer, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never get it there.
how, if you don't mind me asking, how many words are in your new book? Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Well, the current book the current book is probably about half of epic fantasy. It's 55,000.
Okay,
which is about its standard for a satire, dark comedy.
That's the kind of length of book I like to read, though. Honestly, I prefer a book that's like 200 pages. That's a good, healthy length of a book. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, something you can blow through over the course of it's like a beach read. depending on what kind of books you like to read at the beach. I don't know, dude.
Not much of a beach guy. I wouldn't know.
Blizzard read.
No, for those you need.
Read for you.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, exactly. I'll read this when I come in from shoveling snow. If I don't have a podcast to do. Anyway, yeah.
Well, here we are, December. Are you shoveling a lot of snow right now?
I just shoveled before the show. I shoveled about 6 inches of snow off the driveway.
Okay, so funny, not funny at the time story. Okay, so my wife and I, before we had our kids, we moved to Minneapolis in 2002. We lived there for 3 years. And so we did not buy a snow shovel because, we are from Texas and have never lived up north. This is our first move for either one of us ever. Not just out of the city, but we went all the way up. It was like culture shock. We go from Texas to Minnesota, and the first snow that we got was 3 to 4 inches. And I mean, come on, 3 to 4 inches? So we didn't have a snow shovel. We had a dog, and we had a pooper scooper, and we were stuck.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad situation. Let me put it mildly here. Use the Minnesota mildness.
Yeah, so it's a funny little anecdote for us to tell our kids. And I said, there was one time there were 4 inches of snow, and your mom and dad were dumb and young, and
yeah.
Beautiful in the winter, though, man.
No, it's been a pretty winter so far. At least once the snow started falling, which was only started last week. It's been weird, but anyway.
So so the snow only started last.
Yeah, we got our first real snow like a week ago.
Like accumulation.
Yeah, and it lasted. It was starting to melt, and then we got hit by this huge wave, this huge blizzard thing that's coming in now. It's still snowing. Went out, shoveled while the snow was still falling. That's Minnesota for you right now,
Yeah.
So it's a lot of the Midwest, actually. Anyway, enough about the weather. It'll be long gone by the time this episode comes out, but we're dating ourselves here.
Oh, man. I've aged 1,000 years.
Yes, exactly. And then after 1,000 years, I went out and shoveled snow again the next morning. Anyway, of course, a very long time has passed since I last shoveled snow. No, I'm just kidding. That's a random reference, but I don't think anyone will ever get it, except for one person who never listens to the show. So anyway.
Oh, okay.
No, it's okay. It's just that's how my brain rot works. Freddie, you have 2 books out. Have you written books before these 2, or are these your first novels that you've completed? Okay.
These are the first 2. So the second one, the current one that's gonna be on sale soon, they canceled the DJ. That one was supposed to go out last year, but then lockdown happened, and there were some furloughs involved, and so as a self-published author, you are footing the bill for all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so we decided, no, we're not going to do that. So I took lockdown time to take some writing courses and to watch a whole bunch of YouTube videos and listen to a whole bunch of podcasts on the craft of writing. And then I just got after it and wrote another manuscript. So I'm sitting on a manuscript that I don't know if I'll ever use. Currently working on another manuscript that I'm hoping to finish before the end of the year. This goes back to what we were talking about, writing every day and writing as much as you can and exercising that creative muscle before it atrophies and it's just gone. So, in addition to the show prepping, the writing that I'm doing for work that has nothing to do with novel writing, I am trying to bust tail and get something churned out, because one of the 2 manuscripts that I will have by the end of the year is going to get turned into something by October while I'm promoting the current book. So
nice. All right, sounds like you got a pretty solid plan there. Actually, I mean, my plan is not as evolved as that. I don't take time to promote my books exactly. I just throw them at the wall. Like, I mean, that's how you end up with 30 books when you're 31 years old. Whatever.
Yeah.
I only have 13 books out, I guess, but I wrote a bunch more than that.
13.
Maybe there's more now. I forget. I always forget when the new ones come out.
Dude, I mean, you're on a roll, man. I mean, you've got a collection. You see some of these guys with 60 some odd books. James Patterson has got like 11.7 billion. that are out, and he's dropping 1,000. It seems like he drops 1,000 every year.
Yeah, but that's the thing with indie authors is that there's a lot of different approaches, right? You know, and when my approach has been kind of the Dean Wesley Smith approach, right? I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but he's this guy who he was a big media author. He wrote like Star Trek novels and stuff back in the day. So but then he kind of retired from traditional publishing and took up his indie publishing career as soon as it was available, it seems like. And now he writes just shitloads of books, let's put it mildly.
Wow.
and he just publishes all of them. Yeah.
Shitload of books.
Oh, absolutely. He writes like a book a month, and also comes out with a short story every month. A few short stories every month.
Wow.
And then so he comes out basically 2 volumes every month. He has like a volume of short stories in his novel, at least. He might be doing less now, but he's getting up there in years. You know, he might have dropped the output a little bit.
Yeah, and I apologize if I missed this. Is he an indie author?
Yeah, he's an indie author now. He was traditionally published originally.
Because, I mean, to put that kind of work out, I would imagine, you'd have to be indie. I don't know.
No, you can't release that much traditionally.
Authors who put out work every single month like that.
No, nobody does. Basically no one. Not even guys like Sanderson, who are the most prolific. Probably the most prolific of the traditionally published authors are like Nora Roberts, Brandon Sanderson, Stephen King, people like that. And, I mean, I know personally that Sanderson is a pretty slow writer, and his books are enormous. Like, his word count per hour is extremely small. He just never stops, is basically the gist of what I understand about him.
Okay.
So that just takes it to another level. The write every day, the grind through the books, you know? Yeah. But, though, actually, lately, I think ever since I released from trying to write, you know, the same book every day, it's been a lot easier, you know, writing the serials every day.
Yeah,
I guess that just suits me.
Because you want to get to the next thing.
Yeah.
So it's like an incentive for you.
Absolutely. And I also hyperactive here. So obviously jumping around and doing 2 or 3 different stories a day, or, you know, whatever, God forbid 7 different stories in a day, is something I like to do, as insane as it sounds. Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so
a chapter in each.
It seems like you do. Mm-hmm. You write full time, or
yes, I'm a full time writer. Yeah.
Okay, you're a full time writer. Okay, so that's why you can do that.
Yes, most people can't. That's important to note. Yes, most people do not have that kind of time.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like if I can get 750 to 1,200 words in a day with my full-time job, I feel like that's an accomplishment.
No, that is an accomplishment, actually. I mean, I don't know how I would ever have energy to write at all if I had a job that wasn't writing. You know, seriously, I don't. I don't know what that's like.
I think you have to be called to, as cliche as it sounds, you'd have to be called by something or somebody to want to create characters. You know, when it's my favorite author is Chuck Palahniuk, and he tells the story of his favorite teacher, Tom Spanbauer, saying that if you write for anything other than you love to write, and this, no matter, you have to love the craft, the good and the bad of it, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you have to love to write. And if you write for any other reason, whether it's to please somebody in your life, to prove somebody wrong, to get famous, to make a lot of money, to buy a house or a nice car, to get the girl, if you write for those reasons, quit. If you love to write for the mere fact of creating a plot and creating something amazing, then this is your calling. And when I started writing, my kids had actually dared me to write a story, which was like the basis of the reason why I started writing the first book in the first place. It was a dare. We were crazy suburban family spending Saturday night at Barnes and Noble, baby.
A wild time.
yeah, good time. Oh man, I love that place. But
that's great. Yeah.
They were like, Dad, you should write a book. Really? Why would I write a book? What do I know? What do I know? And so I'm like, all right, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna write a book, and just kind of been stewing over it over the course of a couple of weeks, and I'm like, well, what do I know about? Well, I follow a lot of the news, and I hate censorship. So that was like the basis for, getting the ball rolling on the first book. And so, yeah. But I love the idea of being able to create a hot mess and then figure out for my imaginary friends how to navigate that matrix and get them out to the other side, whether the other side is terrible or good, or if it's just getting to the other side,
Yeah. No, that sounds like a really reasonable process. I mean, not reasonable, but that sounds a lot like I wouldn't even say a lot like my process, because I don't see my characters quite that way. But I do. I mean, ever since I've learned to enjoy my characters, it's been made writing a whole hell of a lot easier. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is that sounds like a very, I guess, nuanced approach. Maybe, I mean, you got this kind of whatever happens. That's the story. But then but you try to work through it to make a story out of it, make a book out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the beauty of being a pantser, is that and this is something that I've heard one of my favorite thriller writers, Brad Thor, quoting Frost, who said, "If there's no surprise to the writer, there's no surprise to the reader."
Exactly.
And of course, that flies in the face of so many different famous authors who actually outline and plot. And I've got their Grisham plots, and I had this discussion with David Baldacci a few weeks ago. It's like Grisham plots. One of my other favorite thriller authors, he's a former Navy SEAL, Jack Carr. He just meticulously outlines his stories, and they're so beautifully woven together with not just historical fact, but with current events. And the action is just, it's blood boiling, seat of the pants, high octane, white knuckles, excitement. And you're like, wow, this guy actually outlined? Are you kidding?
Yeah, you can't even tell, right? That's the thing. The process gets, the work transcends the process once it's done correctly. Yeah, I think. And I've noticed that it's one of those things that if you can't do any story with your process, I think your process is going to grow. It's going to change. Like, if you can't tell any kind of story you want to tell with your process, it's got to change at some point, because otherwise you're going to do it differently,
Right, absolutely, and and therein lies the eternal challenge of any writer, because at some point we all, and I think if you not you, but if you, whoever's listening, deny that you don't go, if you deny going through this, you're probably not really a writer. We all get in our heads, and we all get in our own way, and we all get that imposter syndrome. We're all like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? This book sucks. This work sucks. And then finally, you get it together. You punch yourself in the trachea, and you're like, dude, just sit your ass down, get the words out, and just trust the process. And the light at the end of the tunnel is going to get there. And whatever the light at the end of the tunnel is, it is what it is. It could be the glory of a Brian Sanderson, the glory of a Brad Thor, or a Robert Frost. But you know what? As a creator, I feel like it's really none of my business. I'm creating something because, it goes back to my kids daring me to write a story, and then it's kind of evolved into, well, shit, man, I want to have a legacy. I want to have something that in I hope I'm not gone in 10 years. I'm only in my 40s, but fast forward 50 when I'm definitely not going to be here. 50, 100, 150 years from now. My family, my grandkids, my great-grandkids, great-great-great-great-great-grandkids are going to know some dude named Freddy wrote some books, and someone's going to have, because I don't know about you, but I have questions about people that are in my bloodline. I don't have. Oh yeah, definitely. I don't have the luxury of an ancestry.com. It's like, I don't know if my family crossed the border, or if the border crossed them.
The odds are pretty good either way, honestly. That's a pretty good split.
Yeah, it worked out fine for me and my grandparents and my parents, right? Because my grandparents were born here. I think some of my great-grandparents were born here. Half of them may have been, born in Mexico. I have questions. I would love to know the story. I would love to simply read journals of these people. I don't have that luxury. I've got friends who, I found out that I am 1% of this Scottish, and they lived in the Eastern Seaboard right around the time of the Revolution. I'm like, dude, that is mind-blowing to me. Oh my God, that is incredible. I don't have that. And so
that's too bad. Yeah, it's rough. But if you can give it to someone else, that's where you're going with that, right?
I want to give that gift to my family and to anybody who 150 years from now is, happens to see my book in one of those cool ass New York style bookshops, and they're like, "What is this? What is this?
What is this thing?" Yeah.
Yeah, and to go really meta, can you imagine? Okay, so have you seen the movie V for Vendetta?
Yeah.
Okay, so Guy Fawkes. It's like, dude, think about that. He was doing his thing. The gunpowder treason, whatever the hell it was, right?
Yeah. And tried to blow up Parliament.
It inspired this movie, and now people wear Guy Fawkes masks, and they probably don't even know who the hell he is.
It's a good point, yeah.
And it's like, dude, that's how you make a real impact. But guess what? As cool as it would be to know that that's what I would accomplish, it's none of my business. And
that's true, yeah. You got to focus on the now, right? You got to live your life.
Right, absolutely. I'm just living life, having fun, creating these stories, playing with my imaginary friends, putting them through hell and back, making the bad guys have all the fun, making the good guys' lives miserable, and then eventually, if it works out, it works out, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's my rant.
Well, that's great. We're running low on time here, but I want to say that really does, playing with your imaginary friends reminds me of I'm not sure if he actually said it, but it's a line that I always think about in a similar vein when I think of another actually Texas author, Houston author, Paul E. Cooley, and he said because he's a horror author, see, he's a thriller and horror writer, and so if he plays with his characters, it's like he's playing with his food because he's gonna kill them. He kills everybody.
Yeah.
They get disintegrated by black ooze a lot of the time. It's not much fun for them. But hey, it's fun for the readers. That's who it's for,
Yeah, absolutely, man. And for the record, I've never had imaginary friends in my entire life until I started writing books. I was never that kid.
Yeah, me neither, honestly. Actually, I can't say that. I just lied. Anyway, probably shouldn't tell more lies because the show's about over. So, Freddy, tell people where they can find your books, and where they can look you up online.
Yeah, cool, man. I am the Freddy Cruz, Cruz, and that's Freddy with a Y. So Freddy Cruz, the Freddy Cruz on Instagram, Radio Freddy Cruz on Twitter, and the main website, the author website, is thefreddycruz.com.
Excellent. You can definitely find the link to the website in the show notes. Thanks for listening, everybody. It's been a ton of fun. Thanks, Freddy. It's been awesome meeting you and having this chat.
I really appreciate you having me on the podcast, man.
Oh, it's always great. And if you want to find more of these episodes, you can go to mentalcellarpublications.com, people. And you can also find my books at timniederreiter.com/books or the 10 serial projects that are currently ongoing at timniederreiter.com/serial-fiction. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good week, and I will talk to you again soon. Happy holidays, and I guess Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
That tears it.